Breaking news from Washington. Dick Cheney, one of the most powerful and controversial vice presidents in American history and the chief architect of the Iraq War, has died at the age of 84. A statement from his family confirms that Cheney passed away Monday night, surrounded by loved ones, following complications from pneumonia, cardiac, and vascular disease. To many Americans, Dick Cheney was a symbol of power, a man who wielded influence behind the scenes like few others in modern U.S. politics. To his supporters, he was a patriot who defended America in a time of crisis. To his critics, he was the shadow president who shaped the world's most divisive war of the 21st century. Richard Bruce Cheney's journey from a small-town boy in Nebraska to the corridors of the White House was anything but ordinary. After briefly dropping out of college, Cheney began his Washington career as a congressional fellow. He rose quickly, becoming chief of staff to President Gerald Ford in the 1970s, then serving as a Republican congressman from Wyoming, and later as Secretary of Defense under President George H.W. Bush. As defense secretary, he helped lead the U.S. to victory in the 1991 Gulf War, a swift and decisive campaign that elevated his national profile. But Cheney's most defining chapter began in 2000, when George W. Bush chose him as his running mate. At first, Cheney's role seemed traditional, a seasoned hand guiding a new president. That all changed after September 11, 2001. In the chaos and fear that followed the attacks, Cheney became the driving force behind America's war on terror. He pushed for expanded executive powers, warrantless surveillance, and the use of enhanced interrogation techniques, policies critics called torture. Cheney was also the leading voice advocating for the 2003 invasion of Iraq. He claimed Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction, intelligence that later proved false. The war would last nearly a decade, cost over $700 billion, and claim the lives of more than 4,000 U.S. service members and around 200,000 Iraqi civilians. To this day, that decision remains one of the most consequential and divisive in American history. President Bush affectionately called him Big Time. His critics preferred another name, Darth Vader. Cheney was the ultimate Washington insider, secretive, strategic, and unapologetically hawkish. He believed in a strong presidency and rarely showed regret for the choices he made, even as protests and public anger mounted over the war. Yet, in private, those who knew him described a softer man, a devoted husband, father, and grandfather with a quiet sense of humor and a deep love for fly fishing in Wyoming. After leaving office in 2009, Cheney remained a prominent and polarizing figure. He continued to defend the Bush administration's record, while also breaking sharply from the Republican Party's future direction under Donald Trump. In one of his final political statements, Cheney declared Donald Trump the greatest threat to the American Republic, even admitting that he and his daughter, Liz Cheney, voted for Democrat Kamala Harris in 2024. For a man who spent decades shaping conservative policy, it was a striking and symbolic break with his own party. In a statement released Monday night, Cheney's family reflected on his decades of public service and his private devotion to family. They wrote, "Dick Cheney was a great and good man who taught his children and grandchildren to love our country and to live lives of courage, honor, love, kindness, and fly fishing. We are grateful beyond measure for all he did for our nation, and blessed beyond measure to have loved and been loved by this noble giant of a man." Dick Cheney's legacy remains complicated, a mix of power, conviction, and controversy. He reshaped the vice presidency into a commanding force in American governance. He influenced wars, policies, and ideologies that still define global politics 2 decades later. Whether history remembers him as a protector of American security or as the mastermind of one of its most costly wars, one thing is certain: Dick Cheney changed the office of the vice president and the nation forever. Dick Cheney, former U.S. vice president, defense secretary, and architect of the Iraq War, has died at 84.